some things we can talk about. Come to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it. Chop it. Chop it up. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about.
You are now tuned in to the Chop Shop with your host, Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr. Let's chop it up.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Chop Shop. I'm excited, as always, that we're blessed to bring you another Chop Shop episode. I'm your host, Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr., and I'm always riding and flying with my right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka D Pitts, on the ones and twos, making the magic happen. This lighting is a little crazy tonight, but guess what? We gonna get it right. What's going on, Shop?
What's up, brother Marv? How you doing, man?
Man, look, I'm excited. So many positive things on the horizon, man. We getting prepared for some great things in the community. Great things are happening in the community, man. Down there in the Po Homes where I'm at, man, things are so mobilized. We got real dudes, OGs on the ground. I'm just gonna put a little bit out there without saying too much. We had a little incident that involved some gunplay, man. When I tell you 5 minutes after it happened, one of the OGs hit me, and within 24 hours, we were able to kill any idea of retaliation, back and forth, all of that sort of thing, man, and make sure that there would be no continuance of the violence, man. With all the things that we're seeing around the city, I'm really praying that God is blessing us to build something that can be replicated in other hoods, man. But the thing is, when you do it, you gotta pay homage to them real ones. It's some guys on the ground. They not politicians. They not community, what they call it, activists. They are not police that can get things done in these communities that those other groups that I named can't get done. If you ain't ready to work with the people that's in the community that these kids gonna listen to, man, you wasting your time, brother.
Now that's a fact, Marv. That is an absolute fact, brother. Listen, this, you got movers and shakers, baby. You got power players, and they all, they don't always, operate in the circle you operate in.
Yeah, and I ain't trying to say that we talking about brothers who in the gang. That ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about guys who are just loyal and faithful and really care, frontliners that are boots on the ground and have earned the respect for the work that they might have put in back in the day. And they about a good work now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you got to be trusted, right?
That's right.
You got to be trusted. And the way people trust you is they know you know.
That's
they
right.
know you know.
That's
right.
We
ain't got to talk about it. I know you know.
That's right. You out there with them.
Right. And you and I can see you want better for me. No, we can do some things. I'll listen. I'll hear you out. I'll be fair with you. So, that's that. You can only get that, from being from a certain cloth, to be honest, brother. You have to be of a certain cloth to get that.
Before we get to the church announcements, I want to send special shout out, love, and some light to my lifelong friends, Dion, my homeboy Dion Hollywood Jones, and his sister Katrina Jones. Man, they've been getting hit left and right with death, and this time it's one of our brothers, YBS Bean, Dion's only brother, man. I want everybody that's out there listening tonight to send up a prayer as you talking and lifting up your family, lift up the Jones family, lift up my man Dion Hollywood Jones. Dion was the architect behind that beautiful community cookout and softball game that we put together. He's a man that is on a mission to see real change in the community, man. And this death thing been hitting their family so heavy. So listen, in your time tonight, your spare time, when you get ready to say your prayers, like I said, lift up your family. Lift up the Jones family, my man Dion Hollywood Jones and his sister Katrina Jones, and the passing of their brother YBS Bean. Bean, we love you forever, baby. Thank you for sharing yourself with us. All right, man, let's get to these church announcements. Y'all know what it is. We always kick it off the same way. To Stop the Beef hotline. As long as there's a murder issue in Baltimore City, as long as there's violent crime problem, we're going to always kick the show off with the Stop the Beef hotline, 443-431-3705 or 443-522-7848. No police involvement. men, black men, strong black men, credible messengers are going to come and respond to whatever level of the violence is. If it's financial, we're going to do our best to make sure that we can fix it. If it's anything beyond that, we do mediation, intervention, and we make sure that we do it. And again, there's no police involvement. All right, walking hand in hand with the Stop the Beef hotline. My son just bought me his iPad. Y'all know I ain't gonna hide it from y'all. Walking hand in hand with the Stop the Beef hotline is the peace, the Baltimore peace agreement. We got together and we put together a 10-point plan that included brothers behind the walls, brothers in street organizations, as they call them, brothers who used to be there and who got pulled out and blessed to do something different with their life. And we put these 10 points together and we walk the city and we go claiming lives and souls back for God. And we have brothers make the agreement that even if they got to eat in the street, they don't have to die or kill in the street. So if you haven't got the Baltimore Peace Agreement to come through your neighborhood, we need you to step in, step through, come on through, holler at us, or we'll come through and holler at you in your hood and make peace abound in your neighborhood too. All right. What we got next? The Employee Baltimore Show coming to you Thursdays at 1 p.m., bringing you that real information. We are the plug, the Mayor's Office of Employment Development and the Youth Opportunity Program. We have been plugging and connecting people to employment opportunities for a long time. We always say, if you're looking for an opportunity, the Mayor's Office of Employment Development is looking for you. With a focus on economic justice, we are building a workforce system that really works. For these commercials, I think I need to do some voiceover on the radio and get paid. Victory House Worship Center, Sundays at 10 a.m. Yours truly is the pastor, but beyond who's the pastor and who's the this and who's the that, the Spirit of God abides there. People are being healed through learning about the love of Christ, the love of God that was sent his only begotten Son, that he might die, that we might have eternal life. Come on through and join us. Be a part of the family. Sundays at 10 a.m., 1063 West Fair Street in the Lord's Sanctuary. This Friday, tomorrow, I'm going to be joining my sister, Pastor Ebony Harvin, as the closeout speaker, the closer. You know, when you're the closer, you done had 4 or 5 anointed people go before you, and you got to come in there and try to make sense of all of it. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., I'm going to be down in Great South Baltimore, what they call Pig Town. All right, down there with Pastor Ebony Harvin, and we're going to be celebrating the closeout of their convocation. And y'all, the word, write the vision, make it plain, come on through, because we're going to teach it and we definitely going to preach it. That's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Be in the building. Community Walk on Saturday, August the 13th at 12 noon. We will be blitzing the community at 3801 Liberty Heights Avenue, right up there with Muhammad Mosque number 6, and Changing Lives Ministries of Baltimore. Meet up and do great work. Walgreens parking lot is going to be the meetup spot. Join the Men of the We Are Us men's movement. It's going to be a walk, and it's going to be a lot of great resources, free food. There's still some open slots for free vendors. If you have something that you want to bless the community with, please make sure that you come through. We all we got, but we all we need. This coming Sunday at 4 p.m., we're going to be celebrating them. 3 p.m., we're going to be celebrating the music ministry in Victory House Worship Center. Our music ministry labors Sunday after Sunday, setting the atmosphere. And this Sunday, we're going to celebrate and lift them up. We have a few of my favorite people coming through, and it's going to be highlighted by one of my absolute favorites. Pastor Lisa Barnwell is picking up the microphone and singing for us. Y'all do not want to miss this. Special shout out to our minister of music, youth pastor Sonia Clark, and all of those that are part of music ministry. So please come on through and support them, because they make it do what it do every Sunday for us. All right, y'all, September 23rd, Friday, your boy and 5 of my homies, that's right, the pastors, we putting it together, and we going to be standing up and we going to be singing like a group, y'all. It ain't going to be one at a time. We going to be up there together, and the interesting thing about it, we don't rehearse or nothing. We just make it do what it do. So if you're not doing anything, come on through. This is one of our annual fundraisers in our church. We're going to have the praise and worship kicked off by Pastor Kenny Flight, and we're going to have one of my big brothers, awesome vocalist and man of God, Lawrence Bryant, coming from D.C. And listen, y'all, it's going to be live in the place. Make sure y'all there. All right, y'all. One more announcement. Y'all know tonight the flock will be out. That's right, y'all. The first preseason game of the Ravens. My son is over here, y'all, and he is not taking no for an answer. Go ahead. The flock will be out. The Ravens' first preseason game. So I need all the flock to get live and get ready for this upcoming season. And we are praying that there are no injuries on either side of the ball, on either sideline. We want to see these men because this is their livelihood. They got families. I don't care what your fantasy stats say. We want to make sure that these men are healthy throughout the season. All right, y'all. We got a real one with us tonight, man. I've been excited about this conversation because this brother always brings the heat. He always brings the fire. I'm talking about the one and only Pastor Corey Barnes of Grace City Church. He's with us tonight. He got some updates and what's going on with him as it pertains to the work. But more than anything, we're going to chop it up about these election results. What's up, Pastor?
What's going on, Pastor Marvin?
Man, I'm excited that you're here. You know, my son done threw me all the way off. He don't care nothing about me being on the podcast or none of that. He daddy, and he putting the iPad in my face. And I got to give it to him because if he got the iPad, he might let me finish this. But what's going on with you, Pastor?
Man, you know, all is well, man. I'm excited about the movement. The movement is transitioning to a place where, you know, we are getting stronger and stronger infrastructurally. A lot of times people see what we do on the outside and celebrate that, thank God. But more importantly, we want to make sure that our insides are moving in a manner that is pleasing to the Lord as well. And so our infrastructure is strong. Our board is getting stronger. Our work is getting stronger. So I'm just excited about all that is going on in this season.
One of the major changes in the structure and the infrastructure, I ain't gonna let you off the hook. You're gonna have to talk about it because it totally came as a shock to me. But tell us about that major change and give us a little bit of information and insight. Because for a long time, well, really since the inception of the board, you were the president.
Yes, sir. So, you know, what's funny about that is, and you just kind of, and you know this, Pastor Marvin, when you begin something as an organization, all you do is take the gifts and talents of everyone, and it's all hands on deck, right? And so it was like, you know, you were doing 10 things, I was doing 10 things, but what I realized as I was the president of, I had set very clear goals on where I wanted to be president, and then I wanted to make sure that once we hit those goals, that it was time for me to transition. You know, it was 3 goals that we set, which was become a 501c3, set up the board, have resources in order for the organization to function and to function well. And all 3 of those goals had hit. But what was needed more, and I realized that I was doing both jobs, which is really operations as well as setting up the board structure. And so it became important that as we were doing that work all together, it became important that I began to pick a lane that's most needed. And as the board was moving and in the infancy stage and startup stage, it was important for me to distance from the board and really move more towards the operation side of things. And so that's where I ended up working on the operation side. So end up being director of operation. I think I'm more needed now there than actually on the board. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So let's jump into what we came to talk about. And, you know, I got a bunch of people that hit me up after I posted pretty much what we were going to be talking about topically. Because if people had no idea, you know, the midterm election historically in Baltimore had kind of been the whatever election. You know what I mean? The voter turnout has traditionally been low. And, you know, people really didn't know a lot about what was going on with those elections. And, you know, we saw an uptick in the amount of voters that came out in the midterm, and we had some really hot button topics with the governor down to our state's attorney and all of the things that have been in the news about our state's attorneys, about her opponents, and just so many different things drew attention to this election in a way that they had never before. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because we've had some people on, and we're gonna have one of our former mayors on next week to talk about things. But you yourself, pastor in the church, we saw some things that were monumental under this current administration as it pertained to COVID. We saw a governor who said that bars and liquor stores could stay open, but churches had to close.
Yeah.
And literally saw government officials trying to enforce this ban. Do you think that drew more attention from the faith community to this midterm election and in any way impacted the vote?
I absolutely think that, what drew a lot of attention to this midterm election was, again, you're right about the pandemic, the decisions that was made in the pandemic, and more important, the condition in which our people are in which we see a high rate of crime. And that's always been there, but it is impacting everyone's lives. And I think what's his name, Brother Love, made a great point last time about the difference between he talked about the difference between what's the term, criminalization as well as legislation, and understanding those two aspects. And I do think people want some relief all the way around. And what we are seeing a response in the election poll for relief. They want relief of violence. They want relief financially. They want relief in housing. And so I think people are picking a place where they are most desperate and want change, and not sure if the individual that they're choosing is going to change, but they want something different. So I think that's what we got going on right now.
So we saw a brother who is no short of doing great work, but not really known in the political sphere. Well, he's known in the political realm, but not known as a politician himself. And we saw something similar to the election of 045, where you had someone who has a huge name, and he won a Democratic primary over some guys who were pretty much staples in the local politics. Then we saw in the state's attorney's race, kind of the dark horse, Mr. Ivan Bates, come from behind the two people who people were really saying was in the fight to come up and emerge. Is there a message being sent when you see people who are voting the alternative candidates in these elections? And what message do you think is being sent?
I think people are clear that they don't want business as usual. I think we as a state is more moderate than we think we are. I think the progressive movement it had its turn, but people are moving back to the moderate middle because I think one of the problems with the progressive movement is you got to throw the baby away with the bathwater, and not understanding that there's a cost for that. Just like when we went over to overseas and we killed Saddam Hussein, we didn't know it was going to bring the cost of what's next over there. So we got to consider all of those things. So when we legislate and things with just the progressive mindset, we got to understand the cost of what it's going to cost on the long term. And what's happening is the progressive leaders are paying the price of that cost right now because they were good ideas, but they didn't think about what it would cost when you make that decision. So that's what we're feeling right now. And people are saying,
I'm glad that you brought that up, because we got this guy, Dan Cox, right? Who was endorsed by Trump. And literally him winning his primary on the Republican side was a shock to many people. I've been saying since it happened, do not sleep on him in the general election. What's your feel on this guy?
Absolutely. Do not sleep on him. I think there are a lot of people who feel the way that Mr. Dan Cox feel, and not bold enough to say it, but have very similar views. And I think we'll be surprised and shocked of how far he moves in this election if we don't go out and vote. I think we will be shocked and surprised. Yeah.
Well, there are many people that are in that moderate place, and with the moderates going all the way back to Reagan, we know that the moderates can vote on either side. And I know a lot of Black believers who voted for Donald Trump because of some of the conviction in the sense of the moral arguments. And with crime being so high, and the overturn of Roe v. Wade, which really doesn't affect Maryland, but could mean a lot of people coming into Maryland. Do you think moderate people who are more moderate to conservative, regardless of race, Democrats, traditional Democrats who are more moderate to conservative, regardless of race, could find themselves voting for Cox? Do you think that happens?
I think what's tricky about this, and I think we can't. I think the Dan Cox got to be careful, and I think it's something to really think about, is that a lot of people were frustrated with the Democratic Party and vote party lines for our current governor. And I don't think, though, I think some of those people are coming back home. I don't think they're going to go that far. And they're going to come back to the Democratic Party. I think that's what's going to happen. The moderate Republican was as far as probably those people are going to go.
Now let's talk about the people who are on the other side, where a lot of the MAGA community were people who really was a vote for whiteness, if we're going to be honest, and not really a vote for any political agenda. And we see there's some who are saying that with this overwhelming majority the Democrat has in the General Assembly, that electing this Democrat governor, who is known to be more of a progressive, could mean a rubber stamp on all of those policies. Will that motivate people who may be Democrat but not with the liberal agenda to vote on the other side to try to make sure we don't have this Democratic candidate with that overwhelming majority that the Democrats now have in the General Assembly?
I think it's an interesting play because there are a lot of people in Maryland, and I'm gonna take name Democrat, Republican off, and I'm gonna title this: they are fiscally conservative and socially liberal. You catch me? There are a lot of people that are fiscally conservative and socially liberal, which means that the social aspect of it is very important in serving and helping others, but fiscal responsibility is huge as well. And so whoever the candidate to merge those two things well is going to be the one that I think is going to reign. So
being a pastor and someone who does your primary work here in Baltimore, there is a statewide perspective on these elections, and then there's Baltimore. And we're going to talk specifically about the state's attorney's outcome. But right now, I want to kind of stick with the governor. When you see what we just had happen in the primary, where do you see Baltimore? Because I will say that Wes Moore has been very, 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 very forthcoming about his plans and where Baltimore fits into his administration. Do you expect to see something from the other candidate go forward about the city of Baltimore, and what do you expect it to be?
Yeah, I think, Wes Moore has really focused on Baltimore first. He really has believed that Baltimore is the central to the state, and that if we don't strengthen Baltimore, we can't have a strong state. I think that's important. I don't know much about Dan Cox and where he stands on that, but I know that very clearly the value that Wes Moore places on if we don't get Baltimore together, it affects the whole state. And I think that's important. I think every politician needs to understand that if your major city is not doing well, then your state is not doing well. And I think if our school systems are not doing well, if our crime is not doing well, if all of that, then our state is not doing well. And the fact that I think Westmore understands that that's where the work needs to go. I haven't heard that from Dan Cox, but I think for me, someone focusing and understanding that aspect and strengthening all of those things and willing to have a plan for that, I think that's important, you know.
So there are many who believe that the strong conservative aspect of, because that's one thing that people overlooked about Larry Hogan. When it
Right.
came down to Baltimore, Larry Hogan wasn't so lovable in his approach to some of Baltimore's issues like crime.
Yeah.
I spoke to somebody who was very politically astute who said that, Dan Cox may take one of two approaches. One, if he's coming at his hardcore conservative perspective on Baltimore's issues, then you can expect to hear a lot of what you heard from Larry Hogan, or he may exercise his right to remain silent concerning Baltimore. Which one do you expect from him, and how do you think that will impact the overall general election?
I think I don't think he can stay silent on Baltimore and get those moderates that crossed over and think they're coming that far right. He will never. He needs to have a clear agenda and a clear focus in order for him to gain those votes. And if he does not, I think it's going to be a pretty deep landslide with Westmore. So that's my thought on it. Yeah.
I want to take a shift real quick. You on live with the Chop Shop. We come to you every Thursday at 6 p.m. Listen, y'all, we need to get the Chop Shop Cash App up there. No. I'm sorry. Get the VHW Center Cash App up there. Y'all, we are going to be blessing the Lexington Terrace Po Homes community on August the 27th with our annual back to school give back. And this year we're going to be celebrating going more than 12 months without a fatal or non-fatal shooting. So all the proceeds and donations that come in tonight are going to be going towards that effort. So if you're here with us, please find it in your heart to give us a donation. That's at $BHW Center, $BHW Center. Please make sure you put Community Day in the notes so that all of those proceeds can move to the community. Now coming back to our guest tonight, Pastor Corey Barnes. Pastor Corey, the state's attorney's race. There's the race as a whole, right? And people thought that it was a pretty much a two-candidate race and kind of wrote Ivan Bates off. And Ivan Bates emerged handsomely as the victor. What message do you think was being sent by the voters here in Baltimore with that outcome?
Listen, they want change. They are sick and tired of the crime and the violence, and they wanted someone to speak to their anxiety and concerns. And it was important that he was very clear on the issues that was in the minds of the voters, which is very clear: crime, violence, shooting. And he spoke clear on it that he wants to make a change, and he's not and he's going after it hard. That's what people wanted to hear, you know.
So when I think about that, there were some things that literally had eased a lot of what I believe was the what's a good way to put it? Eased a lot of what was that agitation in communities with the sense of hardcore policing. Because while we got marijuana dispensaries, there were Black people who were still being locked up and thrown under the jail and still being kept in jail. And the current state's attorney said, hey, we see the writing on the wall. We're not going to pursue prosecution over marijuana. This new administration coming in, do you expect them to maintain any of those policies as heavily criticized as those policies were? And if they do change, how do you think it's going to impact Baltimore?
The one thing I will respect about the current state's attorney is she was very clear that that was the sword she was going to die on, right? So probably the day that she convicted or charged the police, that was the sword that she was willing to die on. And you can't do nothing but respect someone who have a conviction, have a thought, have an idea, and willing to die for it. I think that's what makes leaders. And so, but that's what it was. She had to die on that sword. And I don't know why it would be a surprise, because unless crime went down, and we know historically, whenever there's riots, it always rises astronomical numbers. You would need it. You would need to do something for that not to occur. So I respect the fact that she stood on her view, and was willing to for the justice of people of color and people in our city. I respect that, and people need this crime to be addressed. And Ivan Bates had the right soundbite, and I say soundbite because we haven't seen any. We haven't seen him one day in office. So it only took a soundbite really, after the actions of in the heart of the people what they want. You only needed the right soundbite. So now we're going to see what the soundbite looks like in action.
I spoke to somebody who is an older person that I have really, really great respect for. And although they were not a big fan of Marilyn Mosby's policies as a whole, one of the things that they said to me that really blew me away, because I didn't expect them to say this, they said Baltimore will live to regret not reelecting Marilyn Mosby, in the sense of tensions rising back between the community and the police and some of those other things, because if there's a push to arrest for some of these minor nuisance offenses, it will kind of undo some of what's been done to heal those spaces. Do you agree with that? And if not, what is your perspective on how those things will be impacted?
Yeah, we have to find a better way to bring both of those along. I think one of the big problems we have in Baltimore is that we have laws on books that we can't enforce. The first rule you learn as an educator is you don't put a rule on the board that you can't enforce. We have too many laws on the book that we have an inability to enforce, and so now it's now problematic, from dirt bike to marijuana, you name it. There are multiple laws on the book that they can't enforce. And so now squeegeeing, loitering, these are things that are on the books that we don't have because of the agenda. And I get it. I get the agenda of the justice agenda. But when you have laws on the books that you can't enforce, you have chaos. And that's what we're dealing with right now. And we have to go back and clean that up. And that's history of work, but we got to go back and clean that up, So, yeah, I think.
From your time in Sandtown, Winchester, up into the beautiful work that you do with the We Are Us men's movement, it's always been so community driven for you. And I want to kind of look at things through your community lens yet as a faith leader and talk about some of the things that you just spoke about. One of those things being a work that We Are Us has been a central part of, even though it hasn't been spoken of. It's being more spoken of now as it pertains to the squeegee workers. Talk to us a little bit about We Are Us's work as it pertains to squeegee and really some of the great things that are coming out of that work.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of aspects of what people were excited about We Are Us working with the squeegee initiative. And, there were some plans and ideas on how people wanted us to work with the young people. And one of the things we were clear on is that we're not going to the corner to do what the police job is. That's not our job. Because what people want is a quick fix, right? They want to see squeegeeing off the corner. It's bad for business. It's bad across the board. So that's what they want. We want a relationship. Because if we can get a relationship, then we know that through that relationship, we can then identify what is really going on in the problem. And from that problem, we can begin to walk with them through life. That's what we went after. And so now we met with them, 13 of them right now, focusing on President Street, the young men that's on President Street, and some young ladies that's on President Street. And we brought them in 2 weeks in a row. 4 of them, 2 of them just got hired. 2 of them are in the process of being hired. So out of 2 weeks, 13, 4 is in process of coming off the corner. So, but that's about quality connected relationships, which is most important. The other side of it is what we're not talking about is I have been in my child's life all his life. You've probably been in your children's life all their lives. What we know about children and young people is even when they get a job or something goes, they're going to mess up. Who do they call? Well, my children call daddy and say, how do I work this out? How do I work? My son is 30 years old. He called me just the other day with his own business. Dad, how do we work this out? So what we're saying is we're taking these young people, putting them in a job, and they don't have a phone call to make. And so we want to make sure that our young people have a one individual in their life that because it will go bad. Things will go wrong. Pick that phone up, call us so we can walk you through life. That takes time, that takes relationship. That's more than just getting kids off the corner. Once we get in that's the process that we're going through with them right now. And so it starts with relationship, and we building a great relationship over 2 weeks. But we know, so we're going to, how many people you've gotten jobs that you had to get a phone call and say, this is not working because, and then they didn't have anybody else to call. That's the problem. The problem we have going on is that young people, and we all do, get in trouble or have to make a custom decision, but they have no one to pick the phone up and call and to navigate that problem. Even as a pastor, I call my pastor. I'm like, listen, I don't know what to do with this. But when you don't have that, and you don't have that, so it's important for us to put that relationship in their lives so that one individual with one young lady that can walk them through when they get stuck, because we all do. And so I just think we got to get human with this thing. We have to get real with this thing, and we got to be relational with this. And I think then we'll see real change. But we're not about the business of quick fixing. You know what I mean? Because we didn't get here overnight, and it's
because that's the thing. It's not a quick fix issue. I remember people. I never chose to do that. I went completely the other way. I sold dope. But I know people that squeegee back when I was a kid, and now, how much do you think the media push to criminalize and to vilify squeegee workers is contributing to some of the things that we're seeing now in a lot of the stuff that we're seeing happening concerning squeegee workers and motorists?
Yeah, I think media. So it's multiple layers to that, which is it's interesting because I think media is trying to tell a story about squeegeeing, and the squeegee young people are trying to feed the narrative in which people want to hear, the justification for it, which then makes it complex to move them from one place to another, right? Because they create this poverty story, and not that that's not true, but at the end of the day, nobody woke up in the morning and say, I want to spend the rest of my life squeegeeing, right? So we do know that, right? We know that people come to us in 3 places. They come to us with a history, they come to us with a destiny, and they come to us in their real reality. And we meet them in their reality, and they want to move. And so how do we take that reality and move them to another place? But when we got sound bites of what it is and what we're saying it is, that's what happens, and they begin to believe or fight that in a way that they shouldn't have to fight it, when simply saying, what's my history? How did I get here? Why am I here? Okay, all right, help me make the next step. Okay, what do I need to do? And keep moving the process. And that's where media can do a better job of just not trying to soundbite this moment and using this as in this political climate, and really look in the face of these young people, understanding, identifying their history, so that they can then move in their reality to a place where they a bit beyond where they are. Nobody can stay on the corner forever and make a living squeegeeing. That's the point, right? Yeah.
You're one of the greatest organizers and entrepreneurs that I know, and there's such an entrepreneurial spirit to the squeegee movement. And yet at the core of who you are, you're a faith leader. what can faith leaders do? And we know that We Are Us provides a great platform for faith leaders to have something that they can step into and hit the ground running. But
Yeah.
what as a whole should we see happening in the faith community as it pertains to issues, specifically with the majority, not all, but the majority of the squeegee workers being youth?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna back up because I love the topic, which is relating to politics and the church, right? Like, and we talk about the squeegee you. And we used to say things like, keep the politics out of church, right? Remember, we say things
Church
like
and
that.
state, church and state.
It said church and state, right? That's what we
Yeah, yeah,
say.
yeah.
But here's the problem, Pastor Marvin. The minute you use the word church, you actually have used the term politics, because the word for church is ecclesia. That's not a spiritual term. That's a political term. The birth of the church has always been into the politics, because the politics is how Jesus himself, there's a political aspect. If you take Jesus' life and you remove the political aspect of it, you don't understand the Bible. you don't. If you take the politics out of church, then you don't understand what ecclesia means. So what makes the church so important and what makes the church so powerful, why the church kept being persecuted, was a political thing that we ours have, and it is mobilization. Mobilization, the power to mobilize, is one of the most political things that the church has. And having one voice in mobilization speaks to, our job is to speak to the issues of the world. We think we're supposed to prophetically, as an individual, me. No, when you mobilize, have one voice, you are speaking into all aspects of the world. That's why Israel was always in bondage, because they would have this mobilization growth moment, and people would say, no, we got to contain that. We got to get that under control. This man is too powerful. Because it wasn't those.
I think we got a little sound glitch issue. You on live with the Chop Shop. We here with Pastor Corey Barnes. We're going to get that regulated. I again want to remind you tonight that we are supporting the Lexington Terrace Poor Homes community with our annual back to school drive on Saturday, August the 27th. And we need your support. So if you can send your donations to $VHW Center, $VHW Center, and designate that it's for Community Day 2022 in the notes, we would greatly appreciate all donations. I think we got Pastor Corey Barnes back. Shock, if we can keep that up, that'll be a great blessing. Pastor, we back with you.
Yes, sir. So I was just saying that the politics, the mobilization, and the unification of the body of the church, our duty, it's always been a part of moving the world, the culture. And so even as we deal with the squeegee issues, you know what I mean? That's a, the politics is why people have responded to it. And then what happens is we talk about poverty. We can't criminalize poverty. And so that's the issue. That's where the church has to step in, as to deal with matters of, and have a place where we can walk through the lives of individuals, because a lot of these guys, a lot of these young ladies need to be in a place where they can develop, not just physically, mentally, but also spiritually. Yeah.
I was in our Western District collaboration meeting for the Group Violence Reduction Initiative today, and it's astounding the two places where the We Are Us movement has spent most of its time, which is the Western District and the Northwest District, have experienced tremendous decreases from where we are this time last year as it pertains to homicides and non-fatal shootings to where we are this year as it pertains to homicides and non-fatal shootings. In the meeting today, there was a over 30% decrease in both, in the which is in the areas where the work of the We Are Us men's movement has been concentrated. and being the operations director, when you look at some of the things and the supports that are given, crosswalk some of the work with those reductions to kind of help people understand the direct approach that the We Are Us movement has taken.
Yeah, I think there are three major things that we do, and you cannot take it for granted. Number one, we do what we do consistently. We show up consistently, and we don't show up empty-handed. We show up with resources, and that's critical. That when we engage individuals, they know that when we show up, we showing up with love, we calling up with compassion, but more importantly, we showing up with a voice that can give them direction on where to make the next steps for their lives. When that is critical to the work that we've done. And I know people want a quick fix. I get it. I see the numbers. I know we get the numbers of the murder rate, and it needs to stop immediately. One life is one too many. We say it all the time. But at the end of the day, what we get, what We Are Us get, and the reality is what you get is a life that's in front of you every day. Like what I can promise you is I don't know necessarily that we fix the murder rate. What I do know is the life that's in front of us, that's suffering, we have something for that suffering. And every time we go out, we can point them to a place of resilience and relief and love to move them from that place. And again, it's like any other child, it's always the choice factor. But the reality is we're coming to give relief, love for that suffering. And one of the things is undeniable is that in our city, there is what's at the core of what we're seeing is people who are suffering, and so that's what we get to do every day. And that's why we keep showing up. That's why we keep showing. That's why we always feel like we're victorious, because there is always a life that's impacted every time we walk out of there. Every time we leave a facility, every time we walk up, like there's somebody sign their name on the line to get a job, and there's a person, MOED, Pastor Marvin, is working on their behalf to make sure that they get that job. And when they get stuck and they can't get that job, there's someone calling and making sure that so there's always someone working on their behalf, and that's what is having an impact. And I know it doesn't translate in statistics, but at the end of the day, that's what keeps us up, coming out every week for 3 years.
We see that when we see the growth of the movement, in the sense of its impact and its expansion, it's not an expansion that's about being in more places. It's about building a model in certain places that will be able to be replicated in other places. Talk to us a little bit about that mindset, because, when people hear that, I think if I remember the statistic correctly, in the Western District last year, this time, there were 38 homicides. This year, it's only 21. Mm-hmm. I don't care what nobody say. 17 less homicides in the district. One of the districts that have driven the homicide rate in Baltimore is a huge, huge thing. Yeah. But if I hear that and I say, well, won't they come to my neighborhood? Why is it important that the strategy be one where it's concentrated in an area, so that when it is replicated, it can be effective?
Yeah. And it goes back to really a different mindset than most people have in these areas. It's like we go to an area and we spend time in that area because it's about relationship. We build a relationship with that community over time, so that when things go wrong, we who they call when things go wrong. See, this is the thing. Like, people are going to get angry. There will be violence. There will be moments but who do they call? Where do they go when things get out of control? And what we have done is build quality connected relationships that we are able to connect with those, even on their bad days. We're able to intervene, step in, support, begin to mediate before it gets too far, and even when it gets too far, begin to help navigate lives even in those moments. So I think that's where relationship is critical in everything that we do, and that's where people miss it. We have great relationships in this community, in all of the communities where we're in, and that's why we stay, because we want to know everybody in the community. We want to know you by your first name. We want to know your grandmother. We want to feed your family. We want to make sure you have what you need, even when at the end of the month. So that's what makes it work for us.
Pastor Corey, what are some of the things people can look forward to coming from the We Are Us Men's movement, and some of the other work that you're connected to and attached to in the near future?
Yeah, so we'll be, again, we still in the 21217 and the 21215. We're going to continue to be in those areas. We're going to expand this, working in the school system. And then the reality is we're going in the school system, but we also are going to be in the juvenile prison system as well, because we understand that there's a connection between those who are on the street, those who are not doing well in school, and those who are in prison. There's a prison to school pipeline right now that we need to interject and get in the middle of and break that cycle. So it is important that we now get into these schools and begin to help navigate these schools, because you gotta have an environment for learning in order for kids to grow and develop and to be the individuals that they are, as well as be productive in society, be strong in the workforce. These environments have to, and then we're going to continue to work, because the greatest work we can do is when we get in the homes and the relationships of children, parents, and making sure they have what they need. So not only are we working with the squeegee kids, but we want to make sure, if the why is to support your family, we want to bring resources around your whole family, so that so that you don't have to do that, and you can concentrate and relieve and be a child and do the work that you need to do to develop into the individual that God has created you to do. So yeah, it's an in-depth plan that we have, but we're excited about going after it. But it takes deep relationship. It takes time, and I believe that we're going to continue. We have a saying: we won't stop, we won't quit. And so that's where we are. So that's where we are, Pastor Marv.
How do people who want to get connected to the movement? I know the answer, but you the guest tonight.
Yeah.
How do they get connected to the movement, to join?
Listen, if you want to connect to this movement, join us on Mondays. It's men only on Mondays, because we out at night. But you can join us and look at our website, weourusmovement.org. It'll tell you the location where we are. Follow us on all social media platforms, We Are Us. You can also meet us on Saturdays. On Saturdays we are in different areas in the city on Saturdays. You can find that on our We Are Us Movement website. We do food distributions 3 days a week. We do life coaching on Tuesday. So if your children, you need some help with your children, they need a coach or somebody to walk them through life, we have life coaching going on. So literally, We Are Us is doing work 5 to 6 days a week, basically Monday through Saturday. There is something engaging in the community and supporting, and that we're supporting the community. And that's not even, and I haven't even talked about the 24-hour aspect of it, which is that we have a 24-hour Stop the Beef hotline, that if you are in trouble, listen to me, young man, listen to me, young lady. If you are in trouble, you can call that hotline number. And guess what? One of these brothers will find a way to help you and get you out of that situation with no police involved. So listen, we're out here. We've been out here. We got a lot of work to do, and we need you. So if you want to be a part of this movement, please join us. weourusmovement.org.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Pastor Corey Bonds, former president. It sounds crazy to say former president and now director of operations for the We Are Us Men's Movement. In a few weeks, we're going to get the new president, my pastor, Pastor Antoine Burton, on here to talk about the furthering of the work, because the Chop Shop is the place where the kingdom and the community collide, because they really are one and the same. I want to thank you for being with us tonight. As always, you bring the fire, and your insights are always keen and on point. You will be back. I ain't got to say that. It's starting to look like you here with us monthly. And I ain't even mad at that, man. But thank you so much for your mentorship in my life and for all of the great work that you're doing in the community. You definitely elevated my perspective as it pertains to leading in the church and as it pertains to what gifts God has given me to lead in the community. And the We Are Us Men's movement is my family. I literally directly attribute the work that me and the guys in my neighborhood have been able to accomplish to strategies and things that we directly picked up from what We Are Us was preaching and what We Are Us was teaching, but more than preaching and teaching, what it has been doing. So Corey, I love you, man. You are my big bro. And we just gonna keep on doing this, man. As many people tune in that want to know where they can be and what's real as it pertains to the city of Baltimore, from all different angles. We're gonna be the voice that bring them to them. So thank you, man. We love you here at the Chop Shop.
Yeah, we love you too, Pastor Marvin and Shaka. I appreciate you. And man, you have been a model in these streets, man. I tell you, man, you're so respected and loved by your people. And you've been a testimony to what it means to be transformed, made new, and to go back and go get your people. So thank you for being who you are. And the passion that you have for this work. So, man, we love you. Thank you. I'm honored to stand beside you. I got a great picture from last week's walk with you and I together that I put together with a little music. So I opened it up with that, and I loved it, man.
That's what's up. To God be the glory, and thank you. Thank you again to my right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts, always on the ones and twos, making the magic happen behind the scenes. And most importantly, we thank you. We always say if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Of course it does. Just was nobody there to hear it, and y'all showed up again and let us know that we should keep coming back and continue to have these conversations, these kingdom connecting conversations, because one thing about being a community leader, you got to love the kingdom, and a kingdom leader got to love the community. So as I always say, trust in the Lord as you continue to be a blessing to your community. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him. He will direct your path. Be the change that you want to see. I don't care if you can't get 1,000 people jobs, but you know that there's one position on your job that you can bring and mentor somebody who needs a change in their life into. You then become the change. And above and beyond anything else, always remember, we don't have to settle because we can be more. Thank you for joining us.
I can be more. There's nothing that I can't achieve if I just believe. You can be more. You can make every dream a reality. We can be more. Be more, be more.
Yeah.
I can be more.
I wake up every day and try to be more. I pray I be more. It's easy to achieve anything you believe. Like hold your head high. Girl, you got a reason to breathe. I see a rare mind. Boy, you got a reason to dream. Let's take flight. Give the children a reason to see redemption. We grow up in the jacks where it's evil and wicked. Where the people with success don't want to send you a visit. But we still finna make this life worth living. Now throw your hands to the sky if you feel it. Hey, throw your hands to the sky if you the realest. You got a vision. Let's put them pistols away and make sure the OGs keep the community safe. In the world where the ladies crying, the babies dying, I think we can create that space to make a way for the ladies to ride and make baby giants. Be more, believe, let's play. I'm so in love with life.
There's nothing that I can't achieve if I just believe. You can